Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. This is the only father-son combination we have in this interview.
Thank you.
So we're grateful to you for being here because you're such an example of achievement in the first generation and then carry over and multiplication to higher levels in the next generation.
Thank you.
Frank, you grew up in what could only be called real poverty in
Yes.
Edna, Texas. Small rural community where Latinos were basically workers, manual workers, and there was little prospects of being able to break out of that. Describe, if you would, the conditions that you recall from your growing up, and then any insight you have in what was the spark that allowed you to break out.
My mother was from Mexico, undocumented, as a matter of fact. My father was an automobile mechanic, I think gone to third grade. But early on, both of them knew that education was the wheel or was the door to break out of this situation. But more than that,
what was the situation?
Of poverty.
Yes. But you've described to me before a house with a dirt floor and running around barefoot most of the time.
Yes. Well, in fact, I didn't have shoes at the beginning. I ran barefooted. And as I said earlier, at the first home, as I recall, very young, we only had 2 rooms. The kitchen in my mother's and my dad and mom's bedroom, and then we slept on the floor. Later on, we went into another house where we had, the boys had, me and my brother had their room, and my sisters had their room, and then mom and dad. But no doors, we had curtains.
Obviously, the quality of the schools was very different, so it was a hard start in education.
No question. In fact, I didn't start speaking English until about the 3rd or 4th grade in a broken manner. It wasn't until later. But a big inspiration was my mother to continue the education. And then finally, there was a priest, I guess he called it, I had a gift of gab.
And he said you had a gift of
gab. And he says, become a lawyer. Become a lawyer. But the big, I guess, lesson that I learned from mother is always this, nunca te olvides donde viniste. Don't ever forget where you came from. And I tried to live up to that motto.
You went to Columbia undergrad?
Columbia University undergrad.
Out of Central Catholic here?
Proud graduate of Central Catholic, and went from there. But in that meantime, in between, is when my mother passed away. And so I deferred for a year and went to St. Mary's for a semester, and that's actually where I met my wife. And from there, I went to Washington, D.C. and interned at the White House for 6 months. And then decided it was time for me to go back to college and go to Columbia that next year.
Give me a sense of your insights about education that you've amassed yourself personally based on your father's background and the family support that you had. But it still comes down to the individual. I mean, some people can have those advantages and not take them. You obviously understood the significance.
The self-gratification of education, the self-awareness of education, the self-responsibility of education is critical. I mean, you could have everything in the world, but if you yourself do not take it upon yourself to study, then you're not going to get to where you need to get.
So, Frank, you are an example of, in one lifetime, watching the country emerge to almost polar extremes. On the one hand, a 2-room house with a dirt floor, exceedingly poor, and now you see a world in which almost anything is possible that can be achieved. What would you say to young people about that path of taking advantage of the kind of world that's been built?
That my only advice is, no matter what your background is, no matter what your level of economics is, the determination, the will to move forward is critical. Then you obviously have to have encouragement, obviously, from your teachers, your parents, family members, but you yourself have to be determined that there is a better way of life and that you can do it.
I am a big fan of the generational story. And Frank, you started in Edna, and Jorge, you had the advantage of Columbia and have been able to translate that into a legal career and a business career. What are your dreams for your children in this generational story?
So as you said, I've been very blessed to follow in some great footsteps.
But you've worked hard and made the most of it. Not
Yes.
everybody does.
You know, as no matter what you do or who you are, unless you study and unless you are really determined, that individual it takes to get to that next level. And I know people who've been in the same situation as myself, but that self-preservation, that determination to get to that next level, sometimes wasn't there.
Do you feel as if you're carrying the family standard? Do you feel some obligation to your father to build on what he has done? Do you feel some of that?
I don't know if I've called it an obligation, but more of an honor to do.
Okay.
Something that I've seen growing up to where even to this day, you ask my kids, what is the one thing that is told of all three that morning before they leave? I said, do your best. It's never try, because there are individuals who say, well, I tried. Well, what is trying really? It's do it. I'm not saying try it, do it. So the same thing with these kids. You know, if there's like at SASD, I'll give you, at Bonham Academy, there's an after-school program for theater. If it's something you've never tried, try it. Maybe it's something you'll find passionate about. Mm-hmm. If there's an after-school program for track or soccer or arts, try it. If there's after-school programs at Bonham and the YWLA for robotics. And I'm proud to say that Bonham, a couple of years ago, won city for the robotics competition. A little school like that was going up against some of the biggest schools with private coaches and things of that nature, and they still won. And so it's about your individual determination on what you want to do and do it.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. This interview will be edited and used in the context of a larger documentary treatment, but your words are very powerful.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.